We're here in New Braunfels. Is that how you properly say it? I feel like I'm always saying it the improper way.
Yeah, you say it's New Braunfels.
Okay.
So people add an extra S, or they put the S in the wrong spot. But
I feel like I say New Braunfels or something like that a lot.
A lot of people say New Braunfels.
Oh.
So that's pretty normal, but it's New Braunfels.
Yeah. And so this is a new facility that's kind of right off of Interstate 35 for the most part, right?
Absolutely, we're right off Post Road. We're on Post Road, basically right behind Woods Cycle Center. So if everybody knows where Woods is at, we're right there.
And basically out of this location, you're fulfilling the orders of everything?
For all the dealers on this side of the world, basically. So we're setting up distributors in other countries, but in America we'll be self-distributed.
Uh-huh.
And then we're doing some direct sales to consumers as well. So, but we've already got a number of dealers set up around the country, and we're looking for more. And we'll be at select events selling. We have online sales. So
all that kind of stuff.
Yes, absolutely.
So Kabuto, like, where does this brand come from? Like, what is the whole backstory to its existence?
Sure. So it's a family-owned business in Japan, multi-generational, and it started off as a brand called OGK, and that stood for Osaka Grip Company. In Japan, company, the way they spell it, has like a K when they do that. So it's Osaka Grip Company, and we made injection molded plastic and rubber parts. One of the funny claim to fames is that there was a Japanese bicycle in ET called a Kuwahara, which was a really cool BMX bike. And there's like a milk crate, like a plastic milk crate that ET actually sat in on the front of Elliot's Kuwahara. And we made that crate. So kind of a weird sort of tie in there. But the company sort of got its start I think right after World War II. And then this part of the family kind of split off and started a new division in early 1982 called OGK Helmets. And they specifically focused on helmets, initially injection molded helmets. And then that's been over 40 years now.
So injection molded helmets, that would mean it was plastic, right?
Yeah, there's still a great number of plastic helmets made in the world, and it's you don't really want to call them plastic. They're injection molded, thermo injection molded polycarbonate alloy. So it's a poly ABS blend, and when people make helmets out of that, you're still solving to the same exact standards, but they have different properties and how they absorb impact and spread impact over the shell. And so, you're still going for the same exact homologations, but you're basically skinning a cat a different way.
Okay.
So while we do make helmets like that for other markets around the world, all the helmets that we're bringing to the United States are Japanese made, and they're fiberglass helmets.
Yeah.
So we're not doing any.
Which is industry standard, right?
It is, and the majority of helmets sold in the world are injection molded.
Oh,
so,
seriously?
Absolutely.
Dang.
The majority of helmets, but the majority of helmets are also sub $100.
So are you kind of like wrapping in every type of helmet thing there is?
No, motorcycle helmets. So there's, but in like places like India, they're selling, they sell probably 10 times more motorcycle helmets than in India every year than sold in America. But there are also helmets that in India, it's probably the equivalent of like $25 US. So they're very, very simplistic, injection molded, completely different standards. So to go back to the history of OGK Kabuto, in about 1982 we started. The helmet brand at that point was called OGK, and I think about roughly about 20 years ago they decided to change the name to Kabuto. And for those that don't know, Kabuto is sort of a generic term for helmet in Japan. So when you say it's like the Kleenex, right? So when you say helmet or Kabuto, it basically
It kind of implies that, like,
helmet.
let me go grab my Kabuto real quick
Right,
before
right.
we leave.
They don't really say it like that, but that's what it sort of implies. There's actually even a Pokemon character that's a little helmet called Kabuto. Kind of funny. But what it really specifically means is on the front of a samurai helmet, there's sort of an adornment that's, it can be really wild or it can be pretty simple, but it was, I guess, to guard against like sword blows and swings, and it's kind of a stylized kind of piece that goes in the front. Specifically, that's really what a Kabuto is. But over time, it's just become synonymous with just another way of saying helmet. So if you look at our logo on the front, the oval, it's kind of a stylized version of what you'd see on the front of a samurai helmet. And so that's where that logo sort of comes from.
Nice.
So, right. So I've had an association with them, and we can talk about that a little bit later, but I've had an association with Kabuto for the family that owns the brand and the brand itself. I've worked with them for about the last 15 years on another project. They really, they tried coming to America about 15 years ago, and it just didn't work out. The logistics of it was just really hard to do. For a Japanese company to come to America and set up and understand the ins and outs of how we do business over here is very different. So since I had a long-term relationship with them and we knew each other very well, and they were interested in coming back to this marketplace, it was a great opportunity for the both of us. And so I agreed that I would sort of set this up and get this going. And I've still got maybe 10 or 15 more years before retirement. And, we'll at least get them a great foundation and get them a place in the U.S. market. Yeah. For sure.
So when they decided to kind of break off and create their own division and focus mainly on the helmets, like what was it? Was it all the injection molded helmets, or do they have a market, whether it's bicycle, motorcycle, like what was their 80s like?
So we still make a huge number of bicycle helmets, and we're the biggest bicycle helmet manufacturer in Asia. In Japan, it is the biggest brand of bicycle helmets by far. Right now, at this point, we want to really focus on the motorcycle helmets, so we're not going to do bicycle helmets at all. But they also have an industrial division that does a bunch of industrial type hard hats and some other things, some personal protection device type stuff for industrial and even medical. So their kind of focus goes well beyond motorcycle helmets into kind of all protective gear specifically around the head. So we make some very, very high-end glasses that are for a bunch of different applications, but really focus on bicycling. So I think that we still do injection molded helmets. We have a giant factory in China, and that's where a lot of the injection molded helmets are being made for the domestic market and things like that. But again, for the U.S. market, or for all in North and South America, we're just going to do the Japanese-made helmets and focus on that and the high-end product. They have a bunch of other styles that are popular in Europe, popular in Asia for scooters and things like that, that just really weren't right for us in the U.S. So right now, we're just bringing in 2 models.
We really don't have that kind of motorcycling commuter, like Vespas and maybe in your San Francisco's, your more urban areas, but it's not the way it is in other countries where it's.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a great thing you touched on that. So, I won't say we're spoiled, but we're spoiled. In a lot of other parts of the world, motorcycles are basic transportation, and it's one of the cheapest ways. A little more expensive than a bicycle, but not as laborious. You can buy a scooter, a used scooter, fairly inexpensive. It's inexpensive to operate. And that's in countries where you're selling tons and tons and tons of helmets. I mean, just thousands upon thousands of helmets. Here, we certainly have people that commute on motorcycles every day, year round, even in places where the weather is horrible. Don't ever tell somebody they can't do something on a motorcycle, because they'll prove you wrong.
We had the ice storm a couple weeks back.
Yeah.
Literally, I saw it was a sport bike. It was going down my street. And I mean, it was slushy, but it was dry.
Sure.
I was like, man, are you crazy?
Yeah. No, obviously there's people who have done crazy stuff on motorcycles, and, you never say, there's people who have to have the exact perfect bike for each purpose they ride or whatever. And then there's people who, use what most people deem the absolute wrong bike, the wrong application, and they do the wrong kind of riding with that bike. But more power to them, because I think it's kind of cool. Don't tell me what I can't do, because I can do anything.
Sounds like racing baggers.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's kind of fun to do something with something that it's not intended, its intended purpose. That's kind of interesting. So, so we do a ton of injection molded helmets. And we do a lot of also fiberglass and fiberglass composition. So this is our own proprietary fiberglass. There's actually some organic material in it as well. And it's a process we've been developing in kind of our own style. And everybody has that. Everybody has what they deem is best. For us, it works for us. We'll talk about it a little bit later. We're going to have a carbon fiber version of this helmet, but
so that for people that are out there, like the process of making a carbon fiber helmet and making an injection, well, not injection, but a
regular fiberglass.
It's like you're still vacuum.
Yeah, in a sense, it's the process is really the same. And
I only speak on this because I spent time in my life, laying up fiberglass race cars, and then we would take those and repop molds off of it to like do carbon fiber bodies.
Yeah. In the old days, helmets were kind of made like that. Like there's some people kind of lower level, but there's still some people that use fiberglass molds to make fiberglass helmets. And they look kind of funny because they bolt together and you have to unbolt them. And the way you do those is they're upside down. You have a female cavity, and you're basically, all of us when we were kids had art class, and it was paper mache, and you're almost doing it exactly the same. That's the real old school way. Now it's very, very specific layers, and the fibers or the strips of material are laid in a certain way. Instead of using, dipping it in some resin or something like that and having the helmet really, really wet and pooling in the bottom, it's pre-preg, so it's already sort of wet with the exact amount of resin. And you're also, for the most part, building modern helmets. You're building them on a male mold, which looks like the helmet. And then it goes into a metal,
like a
female mold. And so you're laying it up on a mold that looks like this. It's made out of rubber. And you put it on there. And like I said, there's an instruction sheet for each and every model of which direction the pieces go and things like that. Because you want the helmet part of a helmet's protective qualities is it sacrifices itself to protect your brain.
Yeah.
So you want the characteristics of what this helmet does as far as absorbing energy. You want it to be consistent, so you have to make each helmet exactly the same. When you test a helmet, it destroys it. So the only way to know that your testing is as accurate is to make the helmet exactly the same every single time.
With them specifically having a direction to lay out each one of the the shards of glass or carbon or whatever, like I would imagine that's also to kind of keep it an even kill around the whole thing and not have too much overlap. and create like heavier spots? Or...
For sure, absolutely, absolutely. And there's a certain way. I mean, there even each size shell, which there's multiple shell sizes for each, that has to be cut different. So you have stacks of material that these are all cut. And I don't know off the top of my head, but you might have the cutting people in the factory will cut this material and they'll stack it, and it's like kind of rubber banded together, and it'll come on like a tray, and it will be like this is a medium helmet, just one helmet, and it's all stacked up, and you have a guide that basically, and of course, once you've made 1,000 of them or 500 of them, you know exactly, but it basically, again, instead of working down inside of a mold, you're putting it on the outside of a mold, and it gets turned upside down, and it gets extreme pressure and heat, and it has to sit there and basically cure. It's a vacuum as well.
And what that's doing is also helping getting rid of all the excess resin, which is kind of where the weight comes from.
Is from the weight, where the weight comes from. In the old days, fiberglass helmets that were made in that upside down method, and working by hand with resin in basically a cup, it was really easier to work with material when you used a lot more resin you needed. But the problem is, since it's upside down, you would have a pool of resin at the very top of the helmet.
Yeah.
And that's exactly where you don't want weight as the highest point. So they haven't really made helmets like that, or I should say the majority of people haven't, the industry, the majority of people haven't made helmets that way in a long time. But there's still some lower level factories that probably aren't selling helmets to the US that do things that way still. But this process is very, very high tech. It's the most modern. And even things like cutting out the eye port, which this is filled in when you mold the helmet, cutting out this eye port, for a long time, the newest technology was a water jet cutter. And, it has its drawbacks, the little diamond tip, it kind of needs maintenance and wears out. And then you just have the mess of all this water. So now the hot setup is this will go in a jig, and there'll be a robot come down and use a laser. It's pretty cool. And it's super, super slick and clean. And the big thing is the accuracy. So when you're doing things like adding events and your shield, and even in modular helmets, when you've got all the parts, you need them to be super consistent. So again, every single helmet's exactly the same way.
So when did Kabuto get into the motorcycle side of like helmet manufacturing?
So right off the bat in like 82, they were doing, it's kind of I'll go into a little bit of a story how I knew about OGK a crazy amount of time ago. I was working at a big shop in Ohio called Iron Pony. A lot of people have heard of them. And I had all these guys coming in. We were very close to Honda North America in Ohio, where they build cars. And at that time, they built motorcycles and ATVs as well. And this is before internet days and all that. There was no way to look online, to look up parts. I just got the reputation as this guy that knew how to get my hands on a bunch of really rare and really cool Ducati parts, which was kind of odd, but I did.
You the Ducati plug?
Yeah, I knew Eldorado Faraci and I knew each other, and these guys, these Japanese engineers, were just crazy about air-cooled old school Ducatis. So we're talking about like late 80s really.
Yeah.
And so they would come over and they would come to the shop. I don't speak Japanese. They spoke very little English, but we could figure it out. They could look in some brochures I had, and I would call up Eldorado, or we did Falicon cranks. I mean, we did so many cool things, big bore kits, and they would throw away their clothes and take suitcases back of Brembo rotors and stuff. And I mean, it was amazing to me as a young guy working in the industry, zipping credit cards for more than 20 grand. back then.
With the little slide
Yeah,
thing.
with the you know, the crunk, crunk,
Yeah.
the one that does the imprint. And it was really cool. And what would happen is these guys would rotate in and out, and then there would be a guy that would show up. You know, my guy would go home with a couple suitcases full of parts, and somebody else would show up a couple weeks later, and they'd have my business card, and they would, you know, walk in and be like,
Yeah.
need to talk to this guy. And so what was cool is I developed a relationship and a friendship with a lot of those guys, and they started sending me stuff from Japan. So I had this collection of motorcycle magazines, you know, that was stuff we couldn't even fathom. You know, there was no Barnes and Noble getting like magazines from all over the world.
Yeah.
It was stuff that you'd never get to see at all in the US. And, you know, the whole thing about it opening the wrong direction.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget one of the coolest helmets that I saw ads for in there was a brand called OGK. And on top of the helmet, they had this big diffuser, this big, like, it wasn't so much an air scoop, it was just a system of intake and exhaust. And I'd never seen it like that before. Later on, Arai had sort of a version of that. But OGK was like the first to do that.
Yeah, the Arai helmet has always been this like really round shape.
Yeah.
With like the.
Yeah, I mean they have a certain kind of design philosophy, and that's another family-owned business in Japan. It's been around a long time, and the family that owns Kabuto and the family that owns Arai are really good friends.
I was gonna say, Hatfield and McCoy.
Yeah, no, not at all, not at all. They're actually, I wouldn't say. I mean, we're still competitors. I don't think we're collaborating on anything.
Yeah.
But they're very, very friendly with each other. Nobody steps on each other's toes. It's, you know, their society is a little different than ours. It's very respectful and very, you know, there's boundaries. And so that was my first observation of anything to do with Kabuto was this magazine called Clubman. And the magazine still exists.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool. One of the guys that worked at Honda actually quit and went to work for that magazine. So I basically almost had a subscription to it, like back in the day. And it's so funny. I still have the original. I'm a pack rat about stuff like that. I still have those original Clubman magazines and the ads. The first time I laid eyes on any Kabuto in these ads, so that was kind of cool. It was kind of a full circle. No, I know exactly where they're at.
Well, you need to send me a picture of that so I can put it in this video. So
All
I
right,
can see
right
it.
on.
Yeah.
And there's some modern Clubmans up front that they gave me when I was over there just recently. So
If I went over there, do they have like marketplace, like Facebook Marketplace or anything like that over there? That kind of like a, like a Craigslist kind of thing going on, or?
I don't know, but
You probably have to be there in a while to find out.
Yeah, so I know one of our racers was there and found some super special bike, and we helped him get it crated up and sent home, and he lives in Spain. So we did go, last time I was there, we did go to a bike shop that specialized in like vintage, really cool bikes, really bizarre stuff I'd never seen. And there was a couple like really, really cool, like there was a Ducati there that was incredible. I don't know how much it would sell for here. But, you know, it's just, motorcycles are much, much bigger part of their general society. You know, here we talk about maybe 4% of people ride motorcycles. That's not money. That's not many. There, it's just, you know, it was winter. It snowed a little bit when I was there. And you'd still... if you were at an intersection at any given time in the city, we're based in Osaka, there was motorcycles even in the winter at the intersection, and scooters and mopeds, things like that. But very much so that it's just part of their everyday life. And so there's lots of shops, from brand new high-end shops. We stopped at a Harley shop and a Ducati shop, but I was getting ready to leave. And they were closed on Mondays and Tuesdays. They need 2 days off in a row. So they were open on Saturday and Sunday.
That's cool.
So yeah, for sure. But Yeah, so they're, it's just different.
So would you say that like that original helmet that you were talking about with the diffuser on the back?
Yeah.
So their initial jump into it was to create helmets that kind of fit a racer profile kind of thing?
For sure, absolutely. So right from the very start, we have, I call it a wind tunnel, but it's more of the building itself as a piece of equipment. So it's really awesome. We're one of the few helmet companies that has their own wind tunnel. And even early on, you can look online and find out some history and things, but we were the first to make kind of that teardrop, crazy looking bicycle helmets that some of those road guys use. We were one of the first. We've always been a supporter of the Japanese Olympic team, so they're always wearing Kabuto bicycle helmets. And so right from the very start, aero was something we really, really paid attention to. I know we've worked with several different universities in Japan as well to kind of understand the dynamics, high pressure points, low pressure points, and racing motorcycles has sort of changed over the years as well. So with Moto GP bikes now, I think here at Kodo, maybe we're going to 225, maybe 225-ish, up the hill basically.
Yeah.
And even some of the events here, you can see that, we have something called omnidirectional aerodynamics. They play a big giant role in our focus. You can see for a Moto GP helmet, the F17 kind of has a smaller wing than some other people's helmets, have these enormous wings. And those work well when you're tucked into the bike and you're under the bubble and you're, you're trying to get as much aerodynamic efficiency as you possibly can. But as soon as you pop up out of the bubble and you're on your brakes and then you have to look through the turn, as soon as you do that, you're turning your helmet and you need the helmet to be stable from kind of the side as well. And you can even see these little vents here in the front. They're designed to scoop air when your head is actually turned sideways, not so much when it's turned front. So that's specifically for that.
What kind of speeds, obviously it depends on the turns, but like when you're kind of coming into that, like on a MotoGP, what kind of speeds do you think they're entering those kind of turns in?
Well, at the top of the hill, they're braking hard from, I think they're going maybe 225. And they're braking, and I don't know. Maybe they're.
That's the top of the hill is a U-turn, essentially, right?
Yeah, basically.
Not quite a hairpin, but a U-turn.
Right. I don't know the speeds at which I've not done a track day there. I wish I did, and I wish I had a chance to do it. But
you would think it's still significantly fast enough to where you're going to get some wind turbulence and stuff coming at you through things.
For sure. Especially when you're, the idea when you're tucked in behind basically the shield. And
even if you're doing like fast S curves or something, you're still going to be looking through it.
For sure. Absolutely.
And so that's still probably going to have
we've all seen pictures of the guys hanging off so hard.
Yeah.
That now not only are they're not rubbing their elbows, they're actually rubbing their shoulders now. And so when you're doing that, the windshield is someplace else.
Yeah.
You're completely out in pretty dirty air, actually. And so we've got a lot of things on this helmet. You can see these little wake stabilizers right here. They're patented to help with the aerodynamic efficiency and also the stability. That's the big part. So this helmet also has something called MIPS. Actually, both helmets that we have in the U.S. right now have MIPS. And what that is the easiest way to explain that. If we think for boxing, for instance, if we were in a boxing match and you get hit in your chin or you get hit in your nose straight on, we're designed to take a pretty good punch straight on.
Yeah.
And we can absorb that. But you've always, you've absolutely seen people who got a right or left hook on the chin and it's lights out. It just turns your brain off, basically. And so MIPS, the idea of MIPS is that, when you have a motorcycle crash and you have basically a rotational impact or you're glancing off something and the helmet twists a little bit, rather than having it be rigid to your head, and then transferring that force, even if it's just minute and very quick, transferring that rotational force to your skull and therefore your brain, it's damaging. And so what MIPS does is MIPS creates a little tiny bit of slip. So the helmet shell, basically, or the interior where your head is touching, it's connected, but there's a little bit of give to where the helmet will move a little bit. And it's not like an ill-fitting helmet. It still fits perfect. It's not perceptible, but you have to think about, when you're trying to make a helmet that will basically have some give, if you will, but also has to be stable enough to go 225 miles an hour and pop up out of the bubble.
Yeah.
It's got to be stable. It can't vibrate or do anything weird like that. But yet, if you do have an accident and you have a glancing blow, that it helps dissipate some of that energy and not reduce the effects of a brain injury. So this is the only Moto GP helmet that has MIPS. MIPS is a much, much bigger deal in the bicycle industry. Everybody knows about MIPS in the bicycle industry. The rider that we had for a number of years, that's still a test rider for us, but he's largely retired now, Alex Espargio, he was a Aprilia rider. Now he's on a test rider for Honda. He's a big bicyclist. He's huge in bicycling. And it's one of the things he loved about our brand is that we had MIPS. So it's the only Moto GP or FIM certified helmet that has MIPS.
So in talking about safety standards, you're talking about, you got your DOT, which is kind of like a Department of Transportation. That's our stuff here in America. Then ECE is a European standard.
Yep, that's right.
And then MIPS, is that just an additive bonus thing? It's not quite a standard yet for me?
It's not a standard. It's basically a feature.
Okay.
It's a feature. So the three, there's multiple homologations. Here in America, we have DOT, which is Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standard number 218 specifically. And it gets sort of a bad rap. Lots of people like to talk bad about it, that it's not, it's not that great of a standard. They really, it's kind of one of those old adages I always like to tell people, tell me exactly what kind of accident you're going to have, and I'll tell you what the best helmet to wear is for that accident. Because there are times when a plain old DOT helmet probably works better than anything else.
Yeah.
But first and foremost, all helmets that are sold in the United States, even if it's like for dirt bike riding, have to be DOT. Has to be. So that right off the bat, you start there. And then ECE, we're now at 2206. That standard changes every 10 years or so. DOT typically doesn't change. It has a little bit, but not much. ECE 2206 is the newer standard there. It's actually put out by the United Nations. So the UN actually does that. And you have to have your helmet certified to that. So they do testing. They don't have their own test facility. They contract to labs. And then we have to pay to have all the testing done and things like that. And we basically get a certification sticker, and you'll see the note of that on the back of the helmet, and actually there's a notation on the chin strap as well for the ECE. DOT is self-certified, so that means I, as a helmet manufacturer, I know what the certification is, or the standard is, and I have to build helmets to that standard. DOT goes out and buys hundreds of helmets a year in the marketplace. They buy them off dealership shelves.
Kind of like secret shopper kind of thing.
Secret shopper type thing. And then it goes to a laboratory that's contracted. There's one, the contract moves around, so it's not always in the same spot, but there's a fantastic lab that I used in the past in San Antonio called Southwest Research Institute. And it's a private, for-profit research institute. It's incredible to go there. And they've been contracted at some point. You really don't know who has the government contract at any given time, but they blind test helmets in the marketplace, And basically, it's pretty scary because if you fail any of those tests, you're going to recall your helmet. And that's a nasty thing. Nobody wants to do that. So you absolutely make sure that you meet the DOT standards. Things still happen.
Yeah.
You know, people.
So
have
by
failed.
doing it that way, it's kind of like you can slap that sticker on your helmet, but if you're going to probably get catching major fine or something like that.
It's huge. Yeah, you're gonna spend, you know,
And
probably
they're going to want
hundreds-
you to pull.
Yeah, all of them. They're going to try to. You have to do advertisements and all kinds of things where you
Yeah.
have to pull those helmets back in if you possibly can. So
wild.
you don't want to do that. So you don't want to mess up with your dot standard.
Mm-hmm.
So and it again, testing wise, I would encourage anybody who's really interested. You know, there's dwell times and things like that. There's joules or how much energy gets transferred from the outside impact to the inside impact. DOT has a penetration test where they've got it's about a 10-pound spike with like a 60-degree point that gets dropped from, I don't know, like 12 feet.
Yeah.
And the spike can go through the shell, but it can't go through the EPS. And there's a way to test that. And so the European standard actually doesn't have the penetration test, or I shouldn't say that. They have a penetration test, but you know as a manufacturer going in exactly where they can drop that spike, so you can build for that. The DOT specification, you can drop that spike anywhere you want. And so you have to build the helmet strong enough. And if you think about something like this, like a foot peg on a motorcycle or something, the penetration test shows you that something pointy. You know, you don't encounter things pointy too often, but let's say you're a motocross guy and you're riding dirt bikes, metal foot peg, a lever,
Yeah.
you know, something that would poke right through your shell. And so it also shows the ability of the helmet to take a sharp impact that's at one specific point and how to spread that impact over the whole entire shell and resist penetration, but also kind of not deflect that impact, but kind of spread it out. And again,
Like when it would show the crash test in cars.
Sure.
How a unibody
Crumple
would
zones. Yeah. Just like
it
that.
would absorb.
Yeah. So again, helmets sacrifice themselves when you crash. The fiberglass will crack and delaminate, and the pieces kind of slide and come apart. Basically, I mean, you know, people, you know, it's surprising. I don't think people really realize you're not trying to make your helmet strong. That's not the idea. You're trying to make your helmet like something that protects you. It's in a way, it's actually kind of soft, and the outside part is hard to absorb the energy and spread it out over a larger area. The inside part, which is expanded polystyrene, which is basically styrofoam. It looks like a styrofoam coffee cup. It's an insulator. That's your shock absorber. And when you feel that, it feels really hard. But all it has to do is give a little bit. And when you know from a coffee cup, if you scratch it with your fingernail, the scratch stays there. And so that's another reason why the helmet destroys itself in protecting you. You might get cracks and delamination here, but when you have an accident, your head is pushing on the inside against the impact, and you're basically squishing from both directions that EPS. And so what happens is once you've had that impact, the helmet largely is no good.
Yeah. So I mean that's just kind of like one of the added features of this helmet. You know what I mean, with all the testing and all the stuff that they
Absolutely.
do for all these different things. What does like Moto GP expect you to have to
Right.
be able to be a Moto GP?
That's a good question. So FIM is another standard altogether on top of that. And this helmet is a FIM approved helmet. It is the actual helmet we use in MotoGP racing. It's not like we have one helmet we use for that, another helmet we sell to the public. This is our MotoGP helmet.
It's like the prototype car, and then the car that comes released to the public. Like this is the prototype and everything.
No, this is the real. This is exactly the helmet we use in MotoGP. You know, our painter that works with a lot of the racers. He's in, I think he's in Holland maybe he's in the Netherlands. I think so. Anyhow, SLG Graphics, we sent him a ton of just white helmets just like that at the beginning of the year, and he paints them for a bunch of the racers. Yeah, so FIM is another one of those that you have to pay for their certification. They rigorously test the helmets. I mean, they are absolutely beating them up and testing them, all different kind of aspects of the helmets, and because they want, it's catastrophic if a racer gets a head injury. So yeah,
And it's kind of like anything, like like when you have a basketball player running down the court and his shoe blows up.
yeah,
That's like devastating for that shoe manufacturer, right?
absolutely.
So you want to make sure, when you never know when the cameras are on the bike or whatever, but you always want to make sure that this is the spoiler's not flying off of it on the camera. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, without question. Yeah, it's every once in a while, you'll have somebody who'll have a shield problem, and there has been a time in the past where shields, if you watch Moto GP, you'll see that shields were coming off, and that was a big problem. And because if a shield comes off in an accident, there's a chance your rider could have a pretty serious eye injury or some facial injury or something like that. So most MotoGP shields now have a locking system, and in FIM2, which is coming up, a new standard FIM will have, there'll even be a more robust locking system that will be absolutely required on all MotoGP helmets.
So when did Kabuto finally, or when did they start getting racers in MotoGP and things like that?
So we've been road racing from the very, very start, and we've had
it's like Superbike, World Superbike,
those kind of things. A lot of times at Suzuka and endurance racing and things like that. But our first MotoGP rider was a young man named Remy Gardner, and racing fans that have been around a while know his father's name, Wayne Gardner. He was a world 500cc champion from, I want to say, late 80s, early 90s. And so Remy's his son. And Remy's not doing MotoGP anymore. He was our first rider. He's gone, and he's doing World Superbike now. And then we got Eilish Espargaro, and he was with Aprilia. And he retired at the end of 2024, and he moved on to be a test rider for Honda.
You were just talking about him.
Yep. And then now we have Johan Mir, who is a champion from a few years ago on a Suzuki. And now he's a Honda rider, and he's our current guy. He was with us last year, and he's still with us this year. We also have Michael Pirro, who's a Ducati test rider. He's a well-known guy that's been with Ducati a very, very long time, and really has played an important role in helping Ducati develop a pretty dominating bike in MotoGP. And then we have a lot of other riders in the other two classes, and then all over the world in many different aspects of racing, from Australia to Europe, and there's a lot of people racing with Kabuto helmets right now. Not so much in the U.S. We're still getting just started with that. So right now, I think we've got Torrin Collins, who's the Super Sport champion in Canada, and comes down and does some racing in the United States. And then we're going to be doing some flat track. So we've got a rider signed up to be a flat track racer next year for us. We're developing some tear-offs specifically for flat track that are different than the road racing tear-offs, but they'll largely use the same helmet.
What does that mean, tear-offs?
Tear-offs. So you can see that not this shield that's chrome, but the shield that's clear right here. You have these big buttons on the outside.
Okay.
On the inside, there's a pin lock system where you basically can install a little shield that keeps you from fogging up. And we can talk about that a little bit later, but specifically for tear-offs, they're basically sheets of cellophane that go on there and have a tab, and you have basically clear vision again.
Yeah.
And you pull it off, and the ones that we use in Europe for road racing are just plain sort of plastic. The ones that we use for dirt track racing in the U.S., you can stack a lot more of them because they're actually, there's adhesive between them and they're actually laminated to each other.
Okay.
So they're almost like a stack of clear stickers. You peel them off one by one, and some guys will use 20 of them on there at one time, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, so we're developing those right now. There's a company in Las Vegas that makes those custom for us.
So I guess let's some of the helmet stuff, like features, and like go over
Sure.
the venting system and some of the aerodynamics as to why maybe some of it's that way.
Sure.
And we can kind of give people an insight to some of the helmet stuff in that regard. You know what I mean?
Sure, absolutely. So this is the F-17, which is our Moto GP helmet. And you'll see in the front, you've got a couple chin vents right here that you can open up independently. And these largely, they're not gonna like add air or send air to your mouth. It's more about keeping the inside of the shield the same temperature as the outside, so you don't have fogging. Most racers don't use pin locks. It's mostly for street riders. They could use a pin lock in like really extreme conditions. Let's say they're doing an endurance race in wet or something like that. Then you got your locking shield. It's a little cumbersome on the table, but once you get used to it, I use my index finger. You basically push with one, and it locks. It's locked down nice and tight.
Yeah, when I was wearing mine, it did take a little bit of time to get used to it.
Yeah.
But it's like it's learning buttons on a controller. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Then you got these vents right here on the top of the forehead, and again, these are really designed so when you pop up out of the bubble and you're going at a turn, these are going to scoop air in when your head's sideways when you're looking through a turn. You got a central vent on the top, and then you got exhaust vents in the rear with the spoiler. And then you got this wake stabilizer right here, which really helps with the aerodynamics of the helmet. And basically what you're trying to do is, you can see this on some aerodynamic commercial vehicles like big trucks and things. If you don't make something like this, and again, it's patented, this is designed, normally the air is going to follow the shape of the helmet and it would come on back to here and would break away and cause a lot of turbulence right behind the helmet. This actually makes the air actually break free right here on the side of the helmet. And so it makes it move through the air much, much cleaner. So again, super serious. So much time is spent on this helmet in the wind tunnel, making sure it's just as perfect as it possibly can be. There's some people are very susceptible to like wind noise when they're riding a bike, and some people seem to not to care about it. These helmets are really quiet. But again, it has a lot to do with your height, the windshield you have on your bike, or no windshield, how dirty the air is. Maybe you have T-bars,
no fairing,
big risers, no fairing, ape hangers. There's so many different factors in play. If we just had this helmet out in clean air, it's super, super easy to design a helmet that works in perfectly clean air. But as soon as you start adding other elements.
Yeah, the bars are going to turbulate air, the way that it comes off the fairing or not. Yeah, all that stuff was going to make a difference.
Even your riding position, because you think about how a guy, on a bike like this ST is going to be riding position, it's like sit up and beg, compared to a sport bike guy who's going to be, tucked in. Even when he's riding relaxed, he's going to be much more aggressive. I'm not suggesting people get on the highway and, tuck in completely. That's ridiculous. But, but really, so the helmet is sort of optimized to work as a racing helmet, but it still works as a street helmet. You've been riding with one for a while. Do you find it pretty quiet?
Yeah, and I guess that's where it kind of gets complicated trying to, I don't know if the word is educate or just kind of like relay, I guess is better how I would say it. Relay how I feel, because it's almost like you got to wear a really unknown or known loud helmet
Right.
and then put it on, because I've never really been very susceptible to loud noises.
Sure.
I'm not a plugs kind of guy. Like the noise in general doesn't bother me. So I've always felt like I really suck at being the person to answer that question.
Right.
But I do notice a difference in, like, say, putting on an Arai, a Shoei, anything that has more of that almost like sock like
Sure.
coming on.
Right.
It's blocking more and more areas from like noise to kind of get in.
Absolutely.
And just knowing from like doing podcasts and like audio stuff, I kind of know how sound works, how it bounces and whatnot.
Sure.
And I don't know. I feel like I don't really have an issue with that at all. But I also, like I said, I've never really been one that's complained about it.
Right.
What I do notice, and you know, when it comes to like an everyday like street rider like myself, like the things that I look for in a helmet is airflow.
Yeah.
Especially here in Texas where
it's super
it's
hot.
110 degrees, right?
Yeah.
And like the pin, or not the pin lock, but the detents.
Sure.
Because again, when it is 110 degrees,
You're right with your shield up and a pair of
sometimes you
sunglasses
just,
on. Yeah.
maybe not all the way up, but maybe just a little bit of air to come in and give you some
Right.
like some fresh air or whatever. And the thing is that like whenever the visor's down and you do have the vents right here open, I don't know what the technical term is for those, but when those are open, I can feel the air kind of just like
Right.
as if it was just fingers rubbing over the top of your head.
Right.
Which to me like adds a lot of value in the ability to like have, you know, cool air on your head
Sure.
while wearing a helmet in a place like Texas.
Right. Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And this is the other thing, because when I did my video of picking up the Harley, and I was kind of giving people, hey, this is riding around, blah blah blah. The biggest thing that people I think in the Harley space have issues with is what do you call it? The turbulence. There's a name for it. When like you're riding and your head starts getting this, it's
The buffeting.
buffeting.
Yeah.
That's right. So I need to ride more to officially say this, but I feel like me and my wife, which she was rocking the Aeroblade.
Yeah.
Us riding around like that didn't happen. I usually only would get a buffeting when I have a passenger.
Sure.
The way I sit and my bars and the visor or the windshields I usually do, I try to optimize for looks and then
Sure.
whatnot.
Sure.
Second.
I understand.
But I really haven't had much of an issue with that. I don't want to go on record saying that I don't have an issue, but that's all a lot of like my height, where I'm sitting on the bike, the wind that's coming over. Like there's so many variables that like, you know, I had said on the video that I didn't have any, and I was just saying maybe that's a testament to the new Harley design.
Right.
But realistically, there's just so many factors that go into that. It's hard to make that a blanket statement.
Well, even HD, you know, for a while, you know, it was basically accepted wisdom that you would just put a big block in front of all the wind and you'd be in this little pocket behind it.
Yeah.
What they've realized is that's where there was a lot of turbulence and buffeting, was that tumbling air behind there and that kind of low pressure zone. And so you see all of the new Harleys, you know, they have vented fairings where you pop open vents, and even that in the center of the windshield at the bottom, there's a pretty big vent. And what that does is that allows air behind. So you're equalizing the pressure. That air comes through and hits you in the chest and things like that. And what it's going to do is equalize the pressure and stop that crazy buffeting. So they're starting to even understand that from the bike manufacturing side of things.
Now that I think about it, when my wife is riding and she doesn't have a backrest and she's closer to me, I really don't get
Right.
that. But when she's sitting back on a rest and there's gap between us,
Yeah.
I feel like that's when you're going to
Yeah.
get that, because you get the dirty air from my element
Yep.
in that pocket there. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So it's kind of interesting. I noticed when I don't have a Road Glide now, but when I had a Road Glide previously, you could open and close those doors. I don't know if the newest ones like that.
They
or
just
not.
have them open now.
Oh,
they
just
got
have
rid of
them
the mechanisms.
Yeah. When you closed them, it was pretty horrible. It might have been a little warmer like in the wintertime,
Yeah.
but I didn't really, don't really ride in the winter anyhow, but it might have been
You
a
were in
little,
Ohio at the time.
At the time, it was really cold when it's winter. But I had to ride with them open all the time to basically stop that buffeting. So, you know, so we're trying to make the cleanest aerodynamic helmet you possibly can.
And I was thinking about this earlier, sorry to cut you off,
Yep.
but I was thinking about it earlier when you were talking about the wind tunnel and for racing. Like that's a specific thing that kind of like encompasses like the initial problem at hand. We need to make an aerodynamic helmet to do this job.
Right.
But then I was thinking like, well, what if you went through the process of doing that for your everyday riders, right?
Right.
But then I answered my own question when I was talking about all the different ways
Right.
that air is going to be turbulated differently through the different
Sure.
fairings, windshields,
Right.
manufacture of motorcycles.
Yeah.
How could you build something that,
And I mean, and everybody has different ideas of what they want to do. You know, right now, half helmets have pretty much fallen out of fashion.
they're kind of in certain segments, like, so right now what's weird is like all the Cali dudes, they're running those like jockey kind of style, like helmets with they have like the covers for their ears. I don't know if that's just a winter thing or if it's the whole style, but that's gotten pretty popular out there.
So at one point, working for another helmet company many, many years ago, we were selling hundreds of thousands of half helmets a year.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, I couldn't wear one. I was manufacturing them. I was developing the how they fit, how they look, all of the engineering side of it I was working on, but yet I couldn't ride with them because to me, they were just insanely noisy. Like the wind, I just couldn't ride with them.
Is this the Fulmer days?
Yeah, it just drove me crazy. We were selling massive amounts of those helmets. And, you know, they work for some people. That's great. I think most people realize that when you're wearing a helmet like that, you have less coverage and therefore less protection. So I think
Mainly those like small little half shells for its inception time was just to solve the helmet law problem.
I think in most cases, ECE 2205, 2206, and people like FIM and Snell and people, none of those guys authorize those helmets. It's only DOT. And they're largely not available. Any of those helmets are not available in Europe. So it's pretty much an American thing. And it probably was for people to get by in states where helmet law states. And that's the closest thing they could do
To still having it open,
to have as minimal helmets as possible. The projects I always worked on were absolutely DOT. We wouldn't do the novelty type, you know. I've never been involved in that. But you know, I think a couple different things have happened. One, they've sort of fallen out of favor with the younger crowd. I think a lot of the older crowd still wears them. Maybe in California that's coming back around.
Yeah.
And I think also a lot of states that had helmet laws now have changed their helmet laws, and they haven't made helmet use mandatory. They might have helmet laws, but it might be that you have to have insurance, or you have to be 21, or you have to be, you know, there's a multitude.
I mean,
of different
technically, I think
things.
it's like that here, where you're supposed to have a certain life insurance policy and of, you know, at least I think it's at least 18 years old or something like that.
Right. Yeah, almost every single state has some form of helmet law, but that doesn't mean you necessarily have to wear a helmet. It just means you have to wear a helmet unless you meet certain criteria.
I want to say even like, I want to say Vegas had some, or not Vegas, but Nevada had some weird one where it was like on a highway you have to wear one, but not on the streets.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I could be completely ass backwards on that.
Right.
But, you know, it was either that or it was lane splitting. Helmets or lane split. I couldn't remember which one. But
I think you know, that's also kind of you know, people have sort of changed up from that, you know, and you know, styles morph and helmet technology, you know, full face helmets are a lot more comfortable now than they used to be. They're better venting, better peripheral vision, things like that. So I think that, and maybe as we age, we worry about getting in accidents more. Maybe we're not as invincible as we once were, and maybe they are more comfortable when it comes to, wind in your face all day long
Yes.
is
Yeah, traveling on a bike,
Yeah.
it definitely changes the dynamic. The first time I ever rode across country, I was doing everything I could. I think I did have like a full face, but it was like a cheap little
sure.
HJC or something you get from like Cycle Gear, real cheap, and it was strapped to the back seat in all the states that I didn't have to wear it.
Right.
But when I got to California, I threw it on, and then you start to realize, like, man, like I've been riding all day long, and just the wind burn and the sun and all the different things, and you get to your destination for the day, and you just look at yourself looking like a raccoon and all the different stuff.
Right.
Got the little half moon shell from your backwards baseball cap going down the road.
Even from a dehydration standpoint, your exposed skin on the highway, you really get crazy dehydrated. I mean, basically the wind pulls the moisture out of your body. And so again, you start getting fatigued, you start getting dehydrated, you start making bad choices. It can just snowball into all kinds of bad stuff. So proper gear, and we're not the type of people to tell people that they have to wear this, they have to wear that. Every once in a while I jump on a bike with a t-shirt on.
Yeah.
I know that is less protection than a jacket.
Yeah.
But I also know that all of motorcycling is risk management.
Yeah.
Even getting on a bike, the majority of people in America, 96% of people, don't risk riding motorcycles. And so even deciding to take that risk means that, we can do all the right things and it still go horribly wrong. So as motorcycle riders, what I hate is I don't like telling people how they should ride or what they should ride with gear-wise or anything like that at all. That's not my place.
Yeah.
That's your risk to manage, and it's my risk to manage.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, don't tell me how to raise my kids.
No. Not at all. Not my job.
So, maybe jumping around a little bit, like where, like you've kind of always been working within the motorcycle industry, right?
I have.
But where was the transition from being in the parts and all that kind of other side of it to getting specifically into helmet brands and manufacturing and all that type of stuff?
So I went to work for Takaraki, which is one of the big giant distributors. They're no longer around. They've been kind of private equity out of business, basically. But they were actually based in Irving, Texas, Dallas area, up in your neck of the woods. And so I actually lived there. I don't know, you might have been 3 or 4 years old or something like that.
Was it 90s?
It was early 90s.
Okay, yeah. I was 8, 9, 10, something like that. Yeah.
So, it was a funny time. We worked for a motorcycle wholesale distributor. It's a place where, for people who don't know, like the Harley dealer gets a lot of parts directly from Harley Davidson, but then there's a lot of parts that come from the aftermarket, and like Takaraki's division was Biker's Choice, and at one point it was Nemco. Our friend Bob Kay, mutual friend from that. And I worked with Bob at Takaraki for a long time. And so, I went to work for them after working in motorcycle shops initially after school. I went to work for them as a buyer. And basically, we had, I think at that time, 10 buyers, and we bought all the stuff. It's hundreds of millions of dollars in sales a year to all the dealers in the United States. And
you're buying from brands to bring into the catalogs, right?
Yeah, we're buying from brands to bring into the catalogs, and we didn't do it's all wholesale, so we only sold to dealerships. And at the time, I think at the peak, we had 12 warehouses, 10 in America and 2 in Canada. And they were strategically placed all over America. And it was my job. Like, for instance, I was the Yoshimura exhaust buyer. And it was my job to buy the Yoshimura exhaust, to put them in all those warehouses based on, we had already decided we were going to be a Yoshimura distributor. So then what you're doing is you're just letting your numbers do the talking, like what demand is coming out. And then you're
because maybe Yoshimura is not going to do as well in like the Pacific Northwest.
Sure.
But, down where the tracks and where the people that are riding more sport bikes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So you're basically going by demand. So, I mean, there was a number of different, I think each of us had 50 or 60 brands. And at that time, we had our senior product line manager, they were called product line managers or buyers, a guy from Dallas, a dear friend of mine, his name's Ronnie Hahn. He bought all of Takaraki's helmets. He was the helmet guy. I focused on exhausts, so I did Yoshimura and FMF, a couple other brands that came and went. I did a bunch of chemicals, so a lot of the chemical companies I dealt with, and I did all street apparel. So Field Shear, First Gear, Hein Garrick, those were all my brands. And, I'm a 24-year-old guy, and I'm writing purchase orders for several $1 million, use some of that. And it was blowing me away. I mean, I was like shocked. And
Yeah, in the 90s.
in the 90s.
Yeah.
And what was crazy is, we're a motorcycle company, and we were required every single day to wear a suit and tie to work.
Damn.
And it kind of drove me crazy. Like, I really, really hated that.
Yeah.
So I did that for many, many years. And then an opportunity arose for another distributor that's kind of the third distributor, and at that time, the third largest one. There was Parts Unlimited, which still exists today. And there was another one that was based in Missouri called Motorcycle Stuff. And it was a family-owned business, not, private equity or anything like that. And it was a family-owned business, and they only had 3 buyers, and 3 guys did but it was a much smaller volume, not as wide of product line. And I went to work for them, and I did exhaust. They didn't have any street apparel at that time, but we brought in some street apparel, and I bought that. We developed our own line of leather, and that's where I had my first involvement with buying helmets. And so my brands that I bought then were Bell. There's an Italian brand that's no longer with us called BFA or Biaffi. I was the Biaffi buyer, and M2R, which was a brand of kind of inexpensive helmets. And they also did some dirt bike racing. By a friend, Tony Oliver out of Australia had that brand. And I think O'Neill Dirt Helmets. So those were our brands there. And I bought those, and again, mostly exhaust and street clothing.
Yeah. And for everybody listening, like, I think most people get, like, they understand the models behind, like, drag specialties and stuff, but, like, these smaller distributor companies help, like, a smaller shop, like a mom and pop shop, be able to have access to parts lines to sell to customers, right?
Sure, absolutely.
And still to this day, there's, like, smaller ones that aren't as big as, like, your drag specialties or a hard drive, I think is what they call it now, but, like, Mid USA is still out there, and they do a lot of consumables, so like your oils, your gaskets. That way, people can still maintenance bikes and have less of a $10,000 or $12,000 buy-in to get set up with companies.
Yeah, and there's regional guys that have been around for a long, long time. There's guys that specialize in certain things. There's a company called Helmet House that does helmets and apparel, basically. There's another company called Western Power Sports, of course, Parts Unlimited. Takaraki's been bought up by some company called Turn 14. That's usually like it's more focused on automotive type stuff. But so the distributors kind of operate in kind of the background, and now a lot of brands, kind of like what we've decided to do, instead of going with distributors and having that extra
discount,
that extra level in there, because they need to get paid. We just work directly with dealers. Even like Takaraki, because UPS and FedEx and everybody got so much more efficient, they certainly didn't need 10 warehouses around America. So they pared that down smaller and smaller and smaller. And now that we're here in Texas, we can service West Coast and East Coast pretty well, fairly quickly out of Central Texas, so South Central Texas. So
I want to say that, like, the one maybe good thing that came out of Amazon was that now I see a lot of UPS and FedEx trucks running on Sundays now.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
You see a lot more, you see, like, I mean, it just seems like it doesn't make sense for it not to
It's a
work.
competitive world. Everybody's,
Yeah.
you know, and everybody's trying to offer a better service level than the next guy. And I think that sort of peaked right before COVID. And then COVID was an excuse for everybody to pull back a little bit, you know, no more breakfasts at hotels and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And people pulled back and started doing almost the bare minimum. And now we have, again, because you want a competitive advantage, now hotels are starting to add breakfasts back in and things like this just because they want to beat the next guy.
Yeah.
And so COVID was kind of a reset for all that stuff. And
Yes,
now-
it was a pullback, but like a rubber band. It's
Right,
like
sure.
now everybody's having to do twice the amount of work that they would have had to do
Right.
to keep up or to keep
Right.
alive now.
right.
You know. So
Yeah, for sure.
So you're buying all this stuff, and you're in Missouri at the time. Or
In Missouri,
Okay.
Cape Girardeau, Missouri, which is a really cool place. Motorcycle riding is epic.
What's it closer to?
So it's right on the border. It's on I-55. It's about 120 miles south of St. Louis and about 200 miles north of Memphis.
Oh, so
so-
55 is what goes north and south right there, kind of along the Mississippi a little bit.
55 goes New Orleans to Chicago.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
And so for riding, it's
Was it like Poplar Bluff or something?
Poplar
like
Bluff's a little bit west of there, but yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So for riding, going west towards Poplar Bluff and all that, and then down into northern and western Arkansas, kind of
Yeah.
where the camp out was.
Yeah.
It's incredible riding. Some of
Yeah.
the best riding that I've ever experienced in my entire life. I mean, you know, it's great to ride in California. It's great to ride in East, in the Smokies and things, but man, the Ozarks are pretty special.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not crowded and people sort of leave you alone.
Yeah.
I kind of like it a lot. So,
And we're like, hey, get your gas and get.
right. Well, I just, you know, it's you know, where you have a lot of motorcycle riders showing up and riding in bunch, and then you have, you know, more law enforcement, and you have to be a little bit more careful. And, you know, as long as you're, you know, not doing too many passes on WO lines.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you don't have too many citizens calling in, you know, 911 on you.
Yeah.
You know, going to a place that there's not many bikes out is preferable. So,
Nice.
yeah, there's some great riding in Arkansas and southern Missouri, no question. So I did that. I worked there for a number of years, and you know, things changed. The family decided to sell that company into some private equity, and you know, basically the company that owned Custom Chrome, they had the V-twin thing locked down with Custom Chrome. They also owned Chrome Specialties and Paco Frames.
Yeah.
And they thought that they needed in their portfolio a company that was focused on Japanese and European stuff, and that was us. And so I stuck around for about 3 years after that transition, and it was to be expected. I mean, it's kind of how those things go. And I was reading one of the trade publications, and there was an ad in there for a helmet company based in Memphis, Tennessee, called Arthur Fulmer. And I knew about them, but they weren't in distribution. They kind of, you know, they operated to the beat of their own drum. Like, they didn't do things normal. They were largely outside of the motorcycle business. They didn't go to any of the trade shows. It was just weird.
Yeah.
And so I decided to take a day off work at Motorcycle Stuff and go to Memphis and talk to them.
Yeah.
I sent my resume down, and it was funny. I didn't keep a resume at work, but it just so happened a friend of mine wanted to plagiarize, because we'd had kind of the same career path, and he wanted to plagiarize what I'd written previously. And so I happened to have it.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I did a couple updated lines and sent it. And, you know,
This is
I
like
got-
early 2000s?
this would have been right at 2000. Yeah.
Okay.
So 2000, 2001. And so I got a call from home, And my significant other that was at home at the time was like, hey, you just got a call like 10 minutes ago from like Fulmer Helmets, and they need you to call them back. And I was like, wow, I sent it 15 minutes ago. Like, cool. So we set something up. A few days later, I just drove the 200 miles down to Memphis. It was a really interesting process. Very, very wealthy family owned that, family-owned business for a long, long time. And they did have a very different approach to motorcycling, the motorcycle helmet business. They'd been doing it since the late 60s. And they'd had some real success. And then they kind of forgot about it for a while, and then success was coming back to them, and it was getting a little bit out of control, and they needed a motorcycle guy to kind of manage that whole thing. And so that was my first time working for a company and solely focusing on helmets and only helmets. And that's where I really got my education in product development. So I started traveling. All of their product was made in Asia. So I started traveling for them to Taiwan, China, Korea, and Vietnam on a pretty regular basis. So it was kind of interesting. I had a lot of say in what the helmets look like and how they fit and the range of sizes and when we would introduce new models and when we would discontinue models and the whole life cycle of helmets and investing in tooling and testing and all these kind of things. And it was a wonderful time for me to really take it, I hate to use the term, to the next level. But the family was wonderful to me. They were really great people. They treated me so well, and I learned a lot, and it was great. And I was there for 10 years. So that was a fantastic time for me. Unfortunately, my father passed away, and at that time nobody worked from home. Everybody was in the office. And even though I was away a lot, traveling to different events and visiting dealers and interviewing them about what they needed for their helmets and going to the factories overseas, when I was home, I was in the office. And I tried to kind of work it out to where I could work remotely and come, for 1 week a month or something like that. And I worked on that a year. So on the anniversary date, they say when somebody, close to you, when something happens to somebody, the best thing to do is nothing for a while. I resigned that position on the day my father passed away, 1 year later. So I went back to Ohio where my mom was. I had a house in Ohio, and I went back to work for my friends at Iron Pony. Did that for a while. Did help them. They added a bunch of new brands to their portfolio. I think now there are over 20 different brands of motorcycles. At the time when I was there, I think they just did Yamaha and Suzuki. But I was there a couple of years and we added another 5 or 6 brands, including Indian. So I had a big experience with like the initial setup of an Indian dealership and the very, very first bikes they did and things like that. It's kind of a cool process, being part of that. And then a person I worked with at Fulmer was working for another helmet company based in California as the office, but they were in China, in Shanghai, and they needed some help. And they needed more of like not so much a product development guy. They needed like a person who understood the helmet business and the manufacturing side and actually kind of, what that process looks like. And they had all these customers already set up, like Arctic Cat was a customer of mine. Simpson Helmets was a customer of mine. And so I would basically go around the country and offer them our services to develop a helmet specifically for them, or to take a helmet that was already existing and update it, or do new graphics or whatever was needed for their marketplace, but also help them understand the timeline of how long that takes to get that done.
So you kind of created a new business of being kind of like a middleman, or kind of
A little bit.
fixer
I mean,
almost?
they sort of had that already, and that still exists for many, many companies. I mean, I don't know if people realize this, but like Harley Davidson does not make any helmets.
Yeah.
Like they're not a helmet manufacturer. So the helmets Harley Davidson has, they've got a guy that works for that helmet company that goes to Harley and says, this is what we can make for you.
Yeah.
And this is the timeline, and this is, I need to talk to your graphics people, and we need to, you can't just do any graphic you want. There's a certain way you have to do it.
Yeah.
And Harley's going to want a specific kind of box and specific kind of packaging and all these different rules and stipulations. So that still exists
Yeah.
for a bunch of different companies. But one of my customers was Simpson. And I went there for maybe 18 months or so, maybe close to 2 years. And we would talk for a brief moment about the helmets that I was making for them. And then their business was starting to kind of take off, and they didn't fully understand it because they were all race car guys.
Yeah.
And they'd had some real success back in like the 80s with like original, like the very first like Z1R super bikes and stuff. Late 70s, early 80s. But when NASCAR kind of blew up for Simpson, it was all hands on deck. Motorcycles and small potatoes, we need to focus on NASCAR.
Yeah.
When NASCAR started going downhill, they decided to take another look at motorcycles. They had some initial success, but they just couldn't really quite figure out how to like where that success was coming from, and they were worried they couldn't maintain it. And so I would go and we would talk about my helmets, the couple helmets I was making for them, and then we'd spend the rest of the day talking about general motorcycle business and how it all works and how you approach dealerships. And I had a lot of experience with that. And so they asked me to come to work for them. And so I was there for 10 years and did all the product development and traveling to the factories and that for, of course, that's how you and I met. I left there to start Kabuto Americas. We're a division of the Japanese company. I left there. My last day was May 31st, 2024. So we really, the first year, we took to get all of our ducks in a row with DOT and third-party testing and warehousing and going to events. And, for the first year, I didn't even have any product.
Yeah.
So we're right now, we received our first product in May of 2025. And so we're not even fully have been up and running even for a year yet.
Yeah.
So still new.
Yeah. So you had to, the space that we're in right now, you had to acquire this, which this is you had a smaller one while this was being built out.
Right.
You had to get the
absolutely.
van, get it wrapped. You had to,
Yeah.
you texted me one day and said, I've never spent, you said you spent $20,000 on boxes?
Yeah. And helmets already come in boxes, but then when you ship it to a consumer, you ship it to a dealer and you need a box that's, these are all 6-packs. Well, I need a single pack. I need a 2-pack. I need a 3-pack. I need a 4-pack. And then I need a box for if somebody just orders a shield and a t-shirt.
Yeah.
So suddenly I'm like, okay, and you're doing artwork on the boxes and you're trying to figure this all out. And of course I want to, keep Japan involved. So it's all, we want to have consistent branding, of course.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of hoops to jump through. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, how many boxes, what's the minimum order quantity to get a decent enough deal? How much?
Yeah.
And it's like, you're going to stroke check for $20,000 just for cardboard boxes. And those are things that I'll completely admit that I took it granted for at places like Fulmer.
It was already kind of established.
Simpson, and that was already established. I didn't have to worry about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I mean, you got pallet racks in here. You have a forklift.
right.
Like I said, or what we're kind of implying here is that this thing has existed in Japan, but being on this side of the world, north, south, Canada.
Yeah.
This is where it all kind of comes from now.
Yes.
What's the
absolutely.
market like in South America?
So it's growing. There's pockets. I mean, there's certainly there's there's a lot more business there for people to use the bikes as basic transportation, and when that's the case, it's inexpensive helmets. But like anything else, there are people there with money, and when they have money, they want to buy
all the cool stuff.
European bikes, dual sports, Harleys, and they want premium products. I mean, there is.
Like the Dynamite crew guys down there.
Yeah, Brazil is huge. Brazil has really weird helmet laws, and it's really, really tough. So most motorcycle helmet companies ignore Brazil. Even though there's a lot of business there and they really want your business, the government is kind of, it's not a horrible thing. It depends on where you live. The government is very, very protective of their business, and they sort of really want you to have a helmet factory there, is what they'd prefer.
Oh, it's like an OG tariffs.
A little bit, yeah, exactly. So, yeah.
So, in regards to like what's on the market right now for the helmets and stuff like that. Sorry, someone was blowing me up.
No worries.
You have the F-17,
Yes.
which, there are some race replica graphics that you guys offer in some of these,
Yep.
but your solid colors are basically the white, the black. There's a gray that kind of matches. In my opinion, it matches pretty well like my Road Glide, which is the billiard gray or something like that.
There's billiard gray, and then there was
Battleship
gunship gray. Yeah. And we call it Nardo gray because that was Audi originally called it Nardo gray.
Yeah.
But that's sort of a sample that is right in the middle. So we try to hit a bunch of different bikes.
Basically the gray on the van, right?
Basically the gray on the van.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's people call it flat, but it's not. What they really want to call it is non-metallic. So it's like a Pantone color. So metallic colors have depth. You know all these things.
Yeah.
That doesn't have depth. When you see something painted like that, you don't look into the paint. You're looking at the surface. And it does do some cool stuff with your eyes, as does paint that you look into it. So just a different vibe.
Yeah,
And it seems to be really popular right now.
And so this is the flagship model. This is what's running around the racetracks. The visor setup that you have is now the Aero Blade is the other one that's coming out. It's not quite.
Not out yet.
So we're looking at what, April, May?
Yeah, it will be this spring for sure. And the Aero Blade is largely the same shape. It doesn't have as big a wing in the back, and some of the parts of them are molded into the shell instead of applied.
Turn around.
Sure.
Yeah.
And the wake stabilizers are kind of built into it. This helmet, we haven't finalized pricing exactly yet, but it should be probably about 2/3 of what the F-17 is. Now it's going to use the same exact shield system, so that makes it kind of nice. It is a hair lighter because it's not an FIM approved helmet. It's just DOT and ECE 2205. But it is going to be a little lighter. It is going to be about 2/3 of the price, so a third less.
Yeah. So what, like these venting, is that like just more of like exiting, like kind of like, because you don't have the.
Absolutely.
Okay.
On those, yep.
Yeah, I like the shape on this. I'm actually in this one for us that are into the custom painted helmets. This one I think is going to be a much more. I wouldn't say the word is easier. I would say it's just more compatible to paint because you have less of the these spoilers. These more. I don't know how
this spoiler is very, very complicated. I spent a day learning how to put this spoiler on in Japan, and I won't say it was a Mr. Miyagi experience, but I had to put it on and take it off and put it on and take it off 100 times. And I mean, it's like Lexus level of getting it lined up so perfect. There's no
margin for error.
At all. I mean, it's not acceptable. And so that makes it really, really difficult for a painter to pull that off and then, you to get that back on. Even the little tapes are on there are specially cut so they fit perfect, and it's very, very difficult. Like I said, I spent a day learning how to do it myself.
I mean, we'll get it figured out one way or another. But you know, the thing is that, like, I think that you know what's crazy is like what people tend to do shopping wise or being a consumer things is when they go to someone's website, they automatically go to what's the most expensive thing they sell. I'm gonna go see what Dodge sells. Well, what's the most expensive car, and then I'm gonna work my way back.
Sure.
I've actually had both of these helmets for quite a while. I've been riding with this one a lot, and to me, this one solves, like, it is lighter. I find it a little bit easier sometimes just throw that one on. It's got a much, like, I know this is like simple technology stuff, but being able to throw some sunglasses on the inside, like, I've always worn sunglasses in my helmet.
Yep.
It's like, you have the other helmets that will have the drop down visor, but it's so clunky, it's so far away.
Yep.
It does kind of weird things with light coming through it sometimes. So just sunglasses on is just super simple for me. And I find that this helmet's, like, the space that it allows for it is so much more comfortable.
Sure.
And I'm a little bougie, and I have like those Meta glasses that like play music and record. And I've found that, like, other than the battery life on that, because it's not like you can rock them all day long or be on a road trip and listen to it for 8 hours, right? Like a traditional headset. But I can put those glasses on, and those pockets in there are it's so nice that I can hear a podcast.
Wow. Okay.
Just clear as day. You know what I mean?
I need to try those out.
I love them.
So right now, Melissa and I have, we have Cardo Pack Talk edges in our Kabutos, and they work perfect. There's little plugs that you pull out, and you can install a Pack Talk edge in these so quick. And we prefer the adhesive style instead of the clamp style, but it's super, super easy to add those. But I've been thinking about the Meta glasses for sure. Even the F-17 and the dual sport helmet, the Geosis, have special little cutouts between where the crown EPS is and the cheek pad starts to allow glasses to fit a little bit easier in these helmets than most traditional helmets. This is absolutely, without question, designed to be a street helmet, first and foremost. These are designed to be race helmets.
Yeah.
And so, the difference there, racers want their helmets really, really small and tight. They just do. And we have a crazy variety of interiors, and we can adjust cheek pads and crowns and fit nearly anybody. But for instance, I'm an extra large, and there's not a whole lot of room. I like my helmets tight, and they break in. I always encourage people to wear them about as tight as you can stand because they're going to break in. And what we hear from a lot of people, especially the first helmet purchase or two they make in their life, they buy a comfortable helmet, and then 6 months later, it's sloppy on their head, and it's 70 miles an hour. It's moving around, which makes it feel heavier even. It makes it noisier, and they're really dissatisfied with their helmet. Of course, as a person that's selling helmets, you want to encourage somebody to wear a helmet that's about as tight as they can stand, but if I keep pushing them that direction, they'll just walk away from me.
Yeah.
So at some point, you have to try to help explain it, that it's something that you want uniform tightness. You don't want any hot spots or any pinching or anything like that. And we want to focus on the crown, which is where a baseball cap would fit. We want that to be as close to the perfect fit as you could possibly get it in the different sizes of helmets. It's going to break in less because right behind that padding is your EPS, which is fairly hard. Down in here where you're having the cheek pads, I tell people this all the time, you shouldn't be able to chew gum when you ride your motorcycle. It should be pushing on your cheeks enough to where it's going to push your cheeks into your teeth. So we can adjust cheek pads. We have lots of different size cheek pads, but I would encourage people to start off with the pads that come in it, and these are going to break in more than the crown will.
Yeah.
The crown's going to stay pretty much there, but the cheek pads are going to break in a lot. And you want the helmet. I mean, we've got a highway here between here and Austin that's 130, that's marked 85. And if you're not cruising at 100 miles an hour, you get ran over.
I just came down it.
Yeah. I mean, people, they don't mess around.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, so for me, coming from a Simpson to this, like I'm traditionally a large in most helmets.
Sure.
I had a large in the Bell Star helmet, large in these. Now on Simpson, I fit Mod Bandits, like the modular helmet, mediums. The large was like, it was comfortable, but then it would break in so much that I could almost pull it off.
Yep.
But I found that the medium fit me better, and I would sometimes have to massage a little bit of the EPS just personally. I was really in between two shells, basically.
Right.
On these, how many shells are there for in size options?
So for this particular helmet, the F-17, there's 3 different size shells. And it's a little different than what we did in other companies. There is extra small, small, and medium are all in the smaller shell. They really wanted medium. Most of the Moto GP guys are mediums. And they really wanted medium in the smallest shell possible.
Yeah.
Because they want the outer dimensions to be as little as possible, as aerodynamic as possible. So then large is a standalone shell that's only one size just for that helmet. And then large and extra large is another bigger shell. And for some people, it just depends. It's one of the reasons why motorcycle helmet manufacturers, you'd think you'd start off with one head shape and you'd build all your helmets to that one shape. But if you did that, it would be like Nike making all their shoes fit exactly the same. You want to make a variety of head shapes so you can fit different people. And so maybe this one doesn't really work for you, but this one might, or vice versa. For Melissa, and I've mentioned her before, she's my wife, and she's also helping me with Kabuto. She's basically running all the operations. So I'm doing more of the sales and that kind of thing, and she's the one that's helping me get all the stuff up and running and getting it done in a timely manner, more so than me. But for instance, in whether it's our dual sport Geosis helmet or the F-17, the other brand of helmet she's worn in the past, she typically was a medium, and she had to go to a large in this brand. For me, I'm an extra large. I was in the previous brand of helmet, and I'm also an extra large in this. So it just depends on how your head shape is and what your expectations are.
And what kind of options do you have as far as padding? Like say you are a medium helmet, you're already, if you're a medium in this helmet, you're kind of already at the max.
You're at the max as far as the crown is concerned.
Okay.
The next step is to go to the large.
To the large,
right. If you bought this and let's say it loosened up on you, or you want to buy a new helmet and you want to give this to your girl or something like that, you could make a medium. Theoretically, you could make a medium into a small or extra small.
Yeah.
But the crown itself is going to stay the same. There's very little you can do. In that particular one, you can do 3 different options. The cheek pad, there's a multitude of options.
Yeah. So maybe to hit it home, it's like this circumference of your crown is the main focus. Like get that right.
Yep.
And then you can tweak the rest to kind of like get it dialed in.
Absolutely. And that's something we do when we're at the track or any kind of event, or even here. Somebody comes by, we break out the extra cheek pads, and we'll get people fitted up to where. But we're going to encourage you to keep it pretty tight in the cheeks and try that. And once it breaks in, if they're not right for you, we'll send you some more.
Yeah.
We want it to be, we want it to fit correct.
Yeah.
It's the whole idea.
So, like I said, we have the Aeroblade probably coming out within the next couple of months.
Yep.
You want to show them the crown jewel over there?
Yeah. So working on the F-17R, which is basically the F-17 in carbon.
Yeah.
And it's very, very cool. It's beautiful. You can see the carbon is really nice. For somebody who's been doing this a long time, there's a lot of different quality of carbon. You can see that people have a tendency to hide certain things, and for the general public, you really don't pick that up, but I can pick that up, and these are really, really nice carbon helmets. Believe it or not, carbon is not the ideal material for a helmet. It doesn't delaminate and crack and absorb energy the same way like fiberglass does. Mm-hmm. It looks really cool. You might save about 100 grams because it is lighter than a typical F-17. But it isn't the best material. We know carbon fiber is very strong and very stiff. And I just talked about earlier how you're not really trying to build a strong helmet. That's not the idea. You're trying to build like crumple zones. So it's almost too good to be a helmet, but it looks fantastic, and people love carbon fiber. Yeah. So this is probably going to be 2027.
Oh,
yeah, it's probably going to be 2027, and it's it's going to be significant. This is already, the F-17 is a pretty expensive helmet, and this is going to push the price up there. I don't know exactly what it's going to be yet, but it's going to be something that's an aspirational helmet.
Yeah. Hey, we got to have the nice baller stuff for the ballers.
Right. Absolutely. It is beautiful.
It is a nice helmet. I think it's, for a lot of the helmets that are out there that are carbon fiber, it does get complicated for the, and I'm speaking on just my experience of painting a lot of these helmets and what I've learned from knowing you all these years. Like say a Mod Bandit, because we both come from Simpson.
Yep.
That whole front piece is plastic, and for it to be able to have all the things that have to go on in there, it has to be.
Yep,
right?
absolutely.
You did work on ways with the newer versions of like the adventure helmet to have like a carbon fiber shell that goes over the plastic.
Right. Yeah.
That kind of still gives you the feel of this. But when you have venting, and I guess for me it works with this spoiler system. It looks good still having that, while still having carbon fiber bleed through. If you, like the Race Star from Bell has like some weird thing that goes on in the carbon helmet when you get up there by all the venting. It's like, it's not solid carbon. Right. It's like they painted some of it or something like that. Or it might be the way the weave comes together in the top or something like that.
I don't want to specifically say anything bad about any helmet brand, and I won't, but that's what I was talking about. When you have a really, really nice shell, we're not having to hide anything in these areas where you have these details. Mm-hmm. It's just carbon fiber. You will see where there are some other brands that subtly, where there are some details and maybe the carbon's not so perfect.
Almost airbrush.
They'll airbrush it. They airbrush it by hand in black, and it looks nice. It doesn't look horrible, but when you start really looking at it, you realize, oh, there's, and that paint's there to sort of hide boo-boos. Yeah. So,
it's just an observation I had whenever I had bought a Race Star years ago to paint and to ride with, before we worked together at Simpson. Sure. I think that was the helmet that made you guys like say, hey, look, we want you riding the Simpson helmet. Right. You know what I mean? Right. So, it was a cool experience, but like coming from sport bikes in the early 2000s, I kind of had some idea of helmet technology. Sure. I've worn them, but then I had about 8 years of like really trying to avoid wearing helmets on motorcycles, Sure. And then when I got into the FXRs and the Dynas, and then, at the same time was kind of like when the boom was happening with Simpson through Unknown and things like that. Yeah. Our mutual friend Brad was like, you got to try this helmet. So it gets us back into the helmet world. And now fast forward, 9 years later, thinking about the helmets that I'm wearing and whatnot is much more a part of my motorcycling than it's ever been, even back in the day. Sure. I can afford to have nicer helmets now. Right. You know what I mean? When I was 21 years old, I was, before even Craigslist, it was more like, hey, I bought this, Kawasaki ZX6R, and it came with 2 extra helmets. Right. And whether they fit or not, like it just, you just wore it, right? Right. And then when you go to the cycle gear or the bike shop, there was always the RF, 1200 or whatever it's at now or whatever it was then. But I mean, that was a $1,000 helmet in like 2003.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? 4. So
you needed tires. You needed other stuff that you had to have.
The tires had a white cord in it, and I still was riding because I wanted to be on the bike so bad. But it's just, there's different levels of like, I think, cost and helmet styles and all this stuff that it exists for a reason. You're paying for a quality of certain aspects. Maybe you don't care about those aspects.
Sure.
Maybe it's all about looks, which I get because I'm that way in a lot of my shit. You know what I mean? I'm just glad that like I actually do dig the shape of these helmets, the look of the helmets. And like I said, I've been riding them for almost a year now and I have no issues with anything that's going on it. I just want to get the painting stuff down. If I can get it so I can paint these things, it's going to be a game changer.
We're gonna get that worked out.
Yeah.
And I was very proud to be part of a small group of people that I think that that took guys that the young HD guy that was probably not going to wear a helmet at all, and we sort of made something that was cool enough for them to accept and wear. And so it's really seldom that you take something like that, a piece of safety equipment, and you make it part of, and I always called it a crown of a subculture, because for a long time, that's the helmet you had to wear, for that scene, basically. And so I'm proud of that, of helping, of having a hand in that. That was a pretty cool process.
Agree. And I think that it like I said, it did a lot to just get a community of riders, like Harley riders, like to the point where like, you know what, I want to try a helmet.
Sure.
Everybody's always, like you touched on earlier, someone's always saying, you need to wear a helmet, you need to wear boots, you need to do this. Well, it's like every once in a while you're like, yeah, I think I might try a helmet. You know what I mean?
Sure, absolutely.
And I don't know, I think it's better late than never for that thing. There's a lot more people on the roads nowadays. There these especially in terms of talking about Harley Davidsons, these bikes are a lot faster out of the box than they ever have been.
Yeah.
So, I remember distinctively like early sport bike days where I had my first Gixxer was like a 01, 2, or 3 Gixxer 600, right? And I remember the shift from like that kind of bigger, bulkier one to like 07, 08 when these things got tiny and just way faster.
Yeah.
And the thing is, there used to be a used bike parts thing with the old Gixxers, and then now the newer ones are at the time, they're old now, but like in 08, those things would just explode.
Right.
Poof.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Absolutely. So there wasn't much left to kind of pick through and part out. But yeah, it's just different. I think that helmets are just kind of becoming more a part of the everyday thing,
Yeah.
I mean, when I ride my chopper, I have a little half shell that it fits the feeling of that bike that's really trying hard to do 70 miles an hour.
Right.
Well,
but it's an open face, right?
Yeah.
It's not a half.
Well, it's the 3/4.
Yeah. Open face.
Yeah.
That's the
Proper term.
Yeah. Well, you don't want to wear a half helmet's like it's like what your grandpa would wear.
Yeah. I just don't. I don't feel like that I have the. I don't know.
I know.
It's just not my.
You don't want your mug out in the wind like that.
I mean, I really wearing a 3/4. I think what I've loved about wearing helmets over the last religiously over the last 7, 8, 9 years is that just being kind of like not having my face out there. A little bit of autonomy or whatnot while you're riding a motorcycle.
So that's something I always like to talk about, and motorcycling is one of those things that's, I don't want to say we don't wear outfits or costumes, but it is one of those things where when you're wearing some gear and you're wearing a helmet, maybe you have a dark shield, you're pretty anonymous. You're really visible to everybody else around you because you're so exposed, but yet they don't know who you are. They don't know what you look like. They don't know your race. They don't know sometimes your gender. You're just anonymous. You're just someone on a bike.
Yeah.
And you're so out there, but yet anonymous, like you said. And it's kind of, I think some people find that really empowering to kind of be like that.
I remember, because I grew up loving basketball, played basketball, and I remember when Michael Jordan got into into racing, like, you know, motorcycle racing.
Yep.
He loved, and I remember reading this in a magazine, that he loved the motorcycle because he could be anonymous,
Right.
you know?
Sure.
And putting on that stuff and going to ride a Ducati or whatever he was on
Yeah.
around, he could just be normal in the world and not have to worry about the mob
Right.
coming over him. And then
Yeah.
he had a race team for quite a few years.
Yeah.
You know?
He has a couple bikes at Barber, at the museum at Barber.
Nice.
You need to go there. So yeah, it's you know, you can imagine somebody like that, some celebrity just getting mobbed at traffic lights and stuff like that. Where if you're on a bike, you know, I think it's pretty normal for a lot of celebrities that ride to kind of, you know, if you know what to look for, you probably can pick out. If you know, if you ride in the same circles, you probably can pick out when Brad Pitt rides by, or Keanu Reeves is probably riding one of his bikes.
Yeah.
So that's super, super cool. But it is a neat aspect of being kind of out there, but anonymous. You know, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, I think, you know, to send this one off and to kind of wrap it up, I think the one thing about helmets, it's a very, if I would put my take on it, I would say it's just like your seat, your handlebars. It's something that fits you. You know what I mean? That what maybe you don't like about this isn't necessarily because it's bad. Like, you know, someone may be like, I feel like I sit, or I like a Corbin seat more than I prefer a Saddleman seat.
Sure.
And then someone might be the other way. And that's why I feel like you always see seats and handlebars on, you know, resale sites quite a bit, because it's like, well, I tried that seat. I didn't like it as much. Right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what the helmet stuff is like sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been fortunate. There was specific helmets within the brand of Simpson over the years that I found myself more keen to.
Sure.
And the same thing that I'm here, I am kind of torn between these two, because the Aeroblade, sometimes I'm like, man, it's just so much easier. My glasses fit in it so well. I like the shape. It still has it. So it's, you know, but I do love the venting on this for the summertime. So it's kind of like one of those situations where I find myself in quite a bit, where I'm like, I like the fit, is it fits very similar on both
Sure.
of them.
So I think it goes back to, as you know, I ride a variety of different kind of bikes, and I don't really try to match my helmet to the bike I'm riding. I try to match my helmet to the ride I'm going on. Whether it's the vibe, or, you know, if I'm riding a dual sport bike, I'm going to wear Argiosis. It's just sometimes I like to wear a solid white helmet. You know, we have a lot of other things coming out. I'm working on a modular. We've just started. We just hired a designer that I'm going to be doing a project designing a true motocross, professional level motocross helmet. So we've never had that before. So I think that's important for the U.S. market.
Oh, yeah.
Like I said, a modular helmet. We have a lot of people asking us for a modular helmet. We make a modular helmet overseas, but it's not right for this market. So instead of bringing it and having the wrong thing, I'm like, we can wait and have the right thing.
Yeah.
So that's going to be important to us. And you know, no matter what, we're going to remain small.
Yeah.
We're handmade in Japan. We don't have that much capacity. If this thing blows up, we're going to be out of helmets, and I won't be able to supply them. It's going to be one of those things that's sort of exclusive. I think I worked very, very hard to build sort of a family at my previous employer, and I'm going to be doing the same thing here. I mean, there's people who have already made the switch for sure. People that are close to me that you know, they're going to ride wherever I go. Probably there's that, you know, and that's the family we want to build. I can tell you, these people it's a family owned business. They're so serious about what they do, and they love it so much, and they love, you know, they just embrace it all around, and they're worthy of our business. They're worthy of being part of that. And it's, you know, it's kind of cool to have something that you don't see everybody and their brother wearing.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's kind of another reason. When I first saw the OGK brand back in those Clubman magazines,
Yeah.
you couldn't it was something you couldn't get in America. And that made it that much more attractive to me, is I wanted something that nobody else could get.
Yeah.
I kind of dig that.
Well, that's literally the philosophy of custom. You know what I mean? Like, I want something that's uniquely mine, or something that I don't have to worry about running into someone that has the same thing. That's why the custom painted helmet thing, I think, went really well with a lot of people in the Harley world wanting to open their ideas to wearing helmets on motorcycles, because then they can personalize them.
Right.
And I think it's just kind of synonymous with the V-twin world.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure, absolutely.
But, I was painting, custom painted helmets to sport bike world long before I ever threw my leg over a Harley. Right. So it's all the helmets are, all my favorite helmet painters of all time, the Air Tricks and guys like that of the world, Chris Woods, they were painting rad sport bike helmets, for Ben Bostrom and so-and-so.
And even on the V-twin side of things, since you've been on it, doing that for more than a decade now, look at how it's morphed and changed.
Yeah.
And it's ever evolving. Mm-hmm. It just really is. It changes all the time.
I think
big wheel bagger's never coming back.
The audience just drops off right here.
Sorry.
All my listeners are big wheel guys. A lot of those dudes, want the helmets. They've been there. I've done a lot for those guys as well.
Sure, I know.
The problem is that, like, this shit can get expensive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And when I say expensive, to some, it's expensive just to buy this helmet.
Yes.
To others, that's the smallest part of what they're about to put on top of this helmet. You know what I mean? So it's really, I've painted Simpson helmets that were in the $4,000 range paint wise. Sure. And I don't do it much, but I get guys every once in a while that just want everything on the menu.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And it gets up there. It's not to say that we don't offer paint jobs less than $2,000.
Right.
But we don't offer anything less than $1,000 for sure. You know what I mean? So,
but you also make sure that when something leaves your hands, you don't paint anything twice, the same thing. So nobody's going to get, and a lot of people that I know, this, a lot of people that aren't very creative, they're going to see somebody else's helmet and they're going to go, I want one just like that, but a different color.
Yeah.
And you still change it up so it's different enough to where there's no, and that's important. And that's part of what you're paying for, is that, Yeah,
it's always funny because, like, we post a picture of a helmet we painted, it shows you how many times it gets shared to somebody.
Right.
So it's usually someone sharing that picture to their painter.
Right.
Or it's someone that's saving that picture. The craziest thing is when someone who's having a helmet painted will tag the painter, hey, I want it just like this in my post of the thing, which I can only paint around 20 to 25 helmets a year, tops.
Right.
That's about as much capacity as I can do.
Right.
And I get scared whenever I post more pictures of the helmets I've painted because of the amount of people that start asking. You'll get an influx of people that start following you, right? And then you'll start getting a lot of messages about dirt track cars, my kid's softball team.
Sure.
I got a retarded kid. I probably should cut that out. You'll get all these things, and it's like, whether I kind of like the idea of painting a helmet for someone in the world that I'm in, the motorcycle world.
Right.
So I'm not really I don't really drag race drag bikes.
Sure.
I'm not saying I wouldn't do one for them, but I would rather paint 20 helmets for dudes that are going to be ripping their baggers or their bikes across the country or riding them, just there. I don't know. I've done a lot of dirt bike helmets or drag bike helmets, but the thing is that, you came to me, I don't need to advertise.
Right.
So I don't necessarily need to do the work and put my logo. I don't put my logo on anything I paint unless it's mine, and I don't know. I'm just kind of going on a tangent here. I've gotten inundated quite a bit the last couple of weeks with helmet paint work.
If somebody wants you to paint their fighter jet helmet, I think you gotta have to do that.
I've had people ask me that. Someone did ask me to do that, and I lost the message in like
I know
something.
how easy that is to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you're getting messages from like 8 different accounts.
Yeah.
And
so
it's tough. I hate it because it makes me feel like I'm not on top of things, and
yeah.
it's
I'm gonna
it's
message
horrible.
his personal Instagram because he checks that. No. I never check my personal stuff.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
it's
message
hard.
him on Facebook. I'm like, I don't even. That is only for marketplace.
Right.
And whatever I post on social media or on Instagram, it
Right.
dumps into Facebook, right? Or you'll get an email and you're like, God damn it, like.
Yeah. Or you have a message and you want to follow up.
Yeah.
And you can't find it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm looking my ass off and I cannot find.
Yeah.
It's like I know that he sent me a message. Can't find it.
Yep. It's a good problem to have. I mean, I used to have a binder that was this full of like pictures that I would have printed out of like Walgreens. And I used to walk into shops like this, not so much like this, but like a shop that sold motorcycle stuff or whatever. And be like, hey man, I'm a painter, I can do this. And talk about a lot of awkwardness.
Right.
Being able to be in the person.
Cold call.
Yeah.
That's
like
tough, man.
knocking on the door, like,
So it feels good to be able to say like, hey, I can only paint 25 helmets a year and you're number 26. Yeah. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Are we going to talk at all about us sponsoring the podcast?
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's like you specifically supported me with Simpson for many years.
Yep.
You were the first podcast we ever did.
Yep.
On the Fast Life podcast, and technically, this is kind of like an 8-year anniversary kind of a recap.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you decided to go this direction with your career, I did stick with Simpson for a time, and they had other plans with their brand, and it kind of left me wide open to be able to come over here and follow you here.
Yep.
I wanted to support you as a friend 100%, but when Simpson decided not to work with me anymore, that made it completely easy to switch.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Sure. Well, I think they don't, their decisions they make are their decisions.
Yeah.
So that's whatever. But I will give you huge credit for playing a giant role in the success Simpson had in this space in the marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
I think that you being part of the podcast, you exclusively painting Simpson helmets all those years, and the quality of your work and your close ties to Simpson really helped their success. So, I'm hoping that we've got some close friends that I'm sure will ride with Kabuto. Already some of them are. We'll have more that will start riding with us. I still love. I mean, my DNA is all over the Simpson product.
Mm-hmm.
For years, those were my babies, and I always have love for that. And I don't want to throw any shade on their brand. It's an awesome brand. It's been around for
100%.
a long time, and still have a lot of love for that brand. But these are fantastic helmets. I think it's something different, and it's exciting, and we're focused on maybe going a little faster, a little quieter.
Yeah. Well, as we said earlier, the Harleys, especially for the people who listen to this, are mostly on Harleys, and a few Indian people out there.
Right.
These motorcycles are getting pretty fast.
Yeah.
And we're in a spot now where the helmets, probably the technology needs to resemble what's been available for the sport bike market.
Sure.
For a long time. And I think that as we see more and more progression in these bikes, and what Harley's putting out, what Indian's putting out, like these bikes are just going to get more technologically advanced.
Sure.
And so I think so should the things that we put on our bodies.
Yeah.
So yeah, it works.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you coming down.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
the opportunity to talk to you about Kabuto.
I'm excited, man.
All right.
All right, guys. This is our new helmet sponsor, Scott, and he's been with me for a long time. So this is an easy transition for me, but hopefully you guys will, take a chance to check out these helmets. If you see Scott at any events, like any events you're going to be at this year for sure.
This year I'll probably focus a little. Last year I did a lot of the V-twin events just because I knew everybody there, and I wanted to have some continuity. This year, I'll be focused on a lot more racing type stuff. So we'll be at COTA for Moto GP. We'll be at several of the Superbike races. A lot of the bagger races, of course, we'll be at. Hopefully some flat track races. I'm probably going to go to Mama Tried and just be there. I don't think I'm going to have a booth this year. I just want to go and see friends and shake hands and hugs and all that stuff. I don't know about Born Free. We'll have to see, cross that bridge. Born Free Texas for sure. Yeah. Absolutely 100%. But Born Free California, maybe not.
Yeah.
I just got to play it by ear. We'll definitely be on the road a lot this year, though.
Yeah, for sure. All right, guys, check them out. There's links down in the description. You can go straight to this website, check out these products, and we appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
Man.
Thanks.